All right, let's jump in. We've got other Big Ten games before we even get to my Michigan State game.
Sure.
We're going to start with Ohio State, the number 2 team in the country, on the road, Happy Valley. Penn State, good football team. We saw them get spanked by the aforementioned Michigan Wolverines. So, while this is another test for Penn State, this is the first test for the Buckeyes. Felder, you chimed in already. What do you expect from Ohio State going into this game?
I think they're going to come out and really mash them out. I like this, and this isn't about being an Ohio State fan or not. This is just, I think Ohio State is a team that's better. They're better offensively, obviously, than we know they're better offensively than Michigan. Michigan kind of fiddle-faddled. In the words of my buddy Alex Kushner from Split Zone Duo, Michigan kind of played with their food a little bit when it came to the Penn State game. I think Penn State's devouring. Or excuse me, I think Ohio State's devouring Penn State. I think that this is a team that's going to come in and just decide, hey, we started a little bit slow a week ago. Let's go get this work, baby. Let's go put the paws on them. Darien, do you think I'm crazy for thinking that? Because when I look at them, I think that this is a team, they want to start fast.
Yeah, no, I don't think you're wrong. I mean, obviously, that's kind of interesting to see to me too. Being on like any type of caliber program like that, the message is always let's play 4 full quarters.
Right.
You can look at a lot of teams around the country. Not too many teams as much success as a lot of the top 5 teams have had, but maybe besides the Georgia Oregon game, not too many teams have come out and played like complete quarters through and through. So that's the message that Ryan Day's telling the guys. So, which to me, a couple of these schools in that top 5, top 6, if they can put together 4 quarters, so a lot of these teams are going to play during the regular stretch. It could get really scary these last 4 games in the regular season. That's the mantra. You want to continue to get better throughout the season because you're not getting better, you get worse. I will say on the flip side, obviously Penn State lost to Michigan last week. Their back is against the wall. Because I don't know what I guess the rankings. I guess Michigan still can have the head. But say if Penn State goes to beats Ohio State beats Michigan, who gets in? You know? To me, that's the messaging. If I'm Franklin, I'm preaching to my guys. It's like, hey, your chips, you can still give yourself a chance. You're not in the driver's seat, but you can put yourself in a chance to maybe sneak back into the championship towards the end. And so there's still a lot of motivation there. A lot of like energy that you can drive into that game. And obviously, they're playing a bigger opponent like they were last week. It's like, hey, we didn't get the job done last week. Let's bounce back. And they go beat Ohio State. Then look, hey, you know what I'm saying? Your destiny, it could be right in front of you.
Right.
So we know who gets in, though, right? Like deep down, like we could say,
facts.
3-way tie. We know who gets in. Facts. It's Ohio State, and I'm also to that point though. I'm kind of like. I'm a little bit questioning where James Franklin's head is at right now, and maybe you guys haven't seen this or not, but like there's a lot of headlines being made that have nothing to do with this Ohio State game that are coming from James Franklin's mouth right now. And I don't know whether it's just distractions, whether it's intentional or not, but like today he made headlines in a press conference basically defending how the institution of Penn State football didn't help him capitalize on their success in 2016. Like 6 years ago, why they're so far behind Ohio State now. He had the whole scuffle with Michigan a couple weeks ago. That's still being talked about in the press conference. I have no idea what that means, but I just don't exactly trust James Franklin to come in and be the motivator that a Penn State team would need to upset Ohio State in this spot. I guess, Darien, from like a recent player's perspective, right? Like, does what your coach is saying publicly before a marquee game like this ever matter to the players or no?
No, it definitely does. Hey, look, I'm gonna keep it 100% real. It definitely does. Cause look, here's the incident for me. This isn't a hypothetical. I had a coach of mine make a comment before we played Ohio State in 2020 that the Ohio State was the 11th ranked team in the country. Wow. And when I tell you Ohio State came out for blood that game, oh my gosh. We were all, and Coach, whenever he came in, he was like, look, I said something to the media that y'all got to have my back for. And we were like, yeah, we got you, Coach. And he said, I ranked them 11. He was like, they didn't play a full season. And that made headlines. And literally Ohio State boat raced us. And so I just think whether it's the player's perspective or the opposing team's perspective, I just think that it definitely matters, and it can give people a little more edge or feel like that you're not focused. It's just anything. I think it can definitely serve as a distraction, whether you think it is or not. But I feel like the end result is going to have that's going to be sprinkled in there. So I would definitely say yes. But at the same time, as a player, like as much you want to keep your focus and control, you don't want anything to distract you. So they're probably like, hey, let's just let that be what it is. Let's focus on the game. But at the same time, like I said, it's all sprinkled in there. It's definitely going to come to life at some point.
Yeah, the big thing for me, I think about that, and I think about I played with Gerald Sensabaugh, and Gerald, when we played Miami in 2004, and don't worry, Greg, I know that you said recent players. You called me old.
I knew you called me out for that dig, Felder. I knew it.
But with Gerald said Miami, he goes, they run 4 plays. They run 4 plays. They just do it out of like a bunch of different formations, but it's only 4 plays. We got this. And so it's bulletin board material. You put it up there. You deal with it. But guess what? We won that football game because Gerald was right. Gerald was the one, what's the saying? You weren't with me shooting in the gym.
Facts.
But Gerald was in the gym all day. And that was one of the only reason I probably have this job is because of Gerald, because I used to spend all day with him watching film. And he taught me more about football than I probably learned from any coach. So the big thing for me is you have to figure out where this fits. And for Franklin, if you're worried about stuff that's not the football part of it, that's the problem. That's where what you mentioned, Greg, that's where that comes into me, where you worry about stuff that's not football. So you got to get in there and you got to play. You don't have the same roster as them. By the way, can I just say this Ohio State defense, oh boy, they're cooking with gas. They are cooking with gas. No stars, but they got a bunch of dudes that are, listen, they line up and Darien, you know what? Tell me about this. When you see 2 safeties lined up with their heels at 8 yards on 1st and 10, and you're on your own 12-yard line, and they're lined up with their heels at 8 yards, and they're not afraid because they're playing cover 0. Like, what goes through your mind?
Yeah, either they are really smart and really good or really stupid. And I'm assuming they ain't stupid.
Yeah, they're really good.
Yeah, they're really good. And their coach has got a lot of trust in them. Because not two teams can do that, because you will get torched. But if you can do that, you can eliminate the pass and you can control the run, which makes it really tough on the opposing team.
Exactly. And that's what I think we're going to see against Penn State. It's going to be really hard for those guys to run the football. It's going to be really hard for Sean Clifford to throw the football.
So, right, and if you look at like Ohio State, that's why you go to Ohio State as a DB.
Yeah.
They trust you. They're going to put you on the island. And if you're going to come here and beat a guy, you're going to have every opportunity to. So it's going to be a big day for Sean Clifford and the boys, or it's going to be a long day.
Let me ask you guys this, and then we can move on to our next game. But Felder, you said, you don't envision this happening, so play along in my hypothetical.
I am. I'm playing.
The world.
All right. Talk to me.
Let's say we close our eyes and imagine a fourth quarter commercial break. They're going to the huddle. It's not a whiteout because it's a noon game, which is stupid, but that place is rocking. And Penn State is down 3 points going into the fourth quarter. How has that happened, Felder? What is Penn State doing? What are they capitalizing to make that a game that late in the game?
Pressure on C.J. Stroud. Yeah. Turnover, probably a turnover that goes for a score or goes into the 10, inside the 10, and finding a way to stop the run. That's the way it happens. That's the way that it happens. That's the way we saw Iowa have some success. It's the same thing. They're going to have to do those things. What do you got?
Yeah, I would say if I'm envisioning it, it's they come out, get up on the board early, get a couple stops. I don't know how they do that, whether it's pressure or whatever, but they get a couple stops, and I think they just have the momentum. Like, I think they either keep them give them a long field or whatnot. But I think they probably, to me, if that's the case, it's like a 27-21 game. They might be up, but not about we said 3 points. I see it being like a low scoring game. I don't see them like blowing them out or it being like a crazy shootout. If a Penn State wins this game, I feel like it'll be like a 35-28 game.
Whoa,
So-
do you think that Penn State can win this game if the game plays into the 30s?
You think they're gonna outscore? Obviously, they have to outscore, but I can't see them like. To me, the game will be slower than fast if they win this game.
Right. So that's what I'm saying. So to me, if Penn State's winning, what we're talking about is a game that plays in the 20s.
Oh, you think it's a 20s game?
No, I don't think it's a 20s game. I think it's I think it's a 40s game, and I think Penn State loses by 2 touchdowns.
Right.
But what I'm saying is, for Penn State to win, they need this game to play into the 20s.
Right.
And that means turnovers. That means doing a poor job on third down conversions. That's what I'm trying to say is, for Penn State to win this game cannot get because guess what? Every time you score, you give CJ Stroud the ball back.